you determine that?
If they were surprised, it shows a high level of incompetence, since it was perfectly public and announced.
If Israel were to say you would be allowed in, would you go?
If they will say that I can just go in a normal fashion, I don't want their authorization. If they can say that I can go in a normal fashion, as when I visit Israel or any other country, yes, I'll go.
We're talking to Noam Chomsky, who's been, well, what exactly did they stamp your passport?
Let's see, what did they stamp it? Actually, my daughter's getting it, so I can see it. Just 1 second. It says Allenby border control, the date, 2 red lines across it, and then it says entry, and the same in Hebrew. And then another stamp says entry denied, where my curiosity is that the word entry is misspelled, but we can skip that.
And you say this was in constant consultation with the Ministry of the Interior?
Yeah, the interrogator, my impression was that he was sort of apologetic and just transmitting information he was receiving regularly. He was in direct contact with them. But he seemed to have no independent role.
Now, you said you are going to deliver this lecture, but by video conference?
Tomorrow it's set up by video conference from Amman, where I am now.
I wanted to ask you a question on Iran, this latest deal that has just been announced. I don't know if you've been following the news as you have been there, but a deal on the whole issue of nuclear power and nuclear weapons. Iran has agreed to ship most of its enriched uranium to Turkey in a nuclear fuel swap deal that could ease the international standoff over Iran's disputed nuclear program. In exchange, Iran will receive low-level nuclear fuel to run a medical reactor. The deal reached with the foreign ministers of Iran, Turkey, and Brazil. And Iran said the swap will be under the supervision of the UN nuclear agency, the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency. What is your assessment of this?
If the reports are accurate, it's hard to see why, on what grounds the United States would object. It's basically U.S. objections. But what's significant about this are several things. First, that it's Iran, it's Brazil and Turkey. Turkey's representative of the regional powers, Turkey, like the Arab League, has made it clear that it does not want sanctions. It wants a negotiation, a diplomatic settlement. Brazil is probably the most respected country in among the non-aligned countries, plays a very important role. In fact, the two of them have and they happen to be on the Security Council, that they're openly calling for a peaceful diplomatic settlement and opposing the call to the threat of any further actions. That's significant. Also significant is that this is in a way a side issue. There is a way to approach the whole issue of whatever threat there may be in the Middle East from nuclear weapons, and that's to move towards a nuclear weapons-free zone in the region. Now, back in 1995, the United States agreed to that. It was on the insistence of Egypt. This was the review conference, regular review conference, and Egypt and other non-aligned countries said that they would not continue with the non-proliferation treaty unless the West, meaning the United States, agreed to move towards a nuclear weapons-free zone in the region, which would eliminate any threat there may be, or at least mitigate any threat there might be about nuclear weapons. And the U.S. did formally agree to that. Actually, the U.S. is even more committed now than it was then, because when the U.S. and Britain invaded Iraq, they did try to present a kind of a thin legal cover. As you recall, the claim was that Iraq was in violation of a Security Council resolution 1991, calling on it to terminate its the development of weapons of mass destruction. Well, we know what happened to the pretext, but what's important is that same resolution has a provision, an article, which commits the signers to establishing a nuclear weapons-free zone in the Middle East. So the U.S. and Britain have a special commitment to this beyond the general commitment of the Nuclear Review Panel. Well, Egypt, which is now the head of the non-aligned movement, 118 countries, has pressed that very strongly in the last few weeks at meetings, preparatory meetings, at the review meetings. And the U.S. has, in a position where it has formally agreed, but it has evaded the agreement by saying clearly that no such resolution will apply to Israel, and accepting the Israeli position that explicitly that while this might be a good idea, as Hillary Clinton put it, this is not the proper time, because first we have to have a comprehensive peace agreement in the Middle East. Well, you know, a comprehensive peace agreement is off indefinitely as long as the U.S. and Israel reject the very broad international consensus on a two-state settlement. So that's essentially saying, well, we're not going to proceed with this. And if they're not going to proceed with it, there can't be a nuclear weapons-free zone. Those are much more central issues. And it's also worth emphasizing that both the Security Council and the International Atomic Energy Agency have explicitly called upon Israel to join the Non-Proliferation Treaty and to open its facilities to inspection. And that happened last fall, and the Obama administration immediately informed Israel that it could disregard the international agency request. India as well. The Security Council resolution would also have applied to India, but the Obama administration informed the Indians that they could ignore it. They're developing nuclear weapons with indirect U.S. assistance under an Indian-American treaty.
Noam, we have to break for 60 seconds, and I wanted to come back to this discussion. Noam Chomsky, professor at MIT, has been banned, along with his daughter, Professor Aviva Chomsky, from entering the West Bank, where he was going to deliver 2 lectures at Bir Zeit University. He was barred on the Allenby Bridge border crossing from Jordan into the West Bank. This is Democracy Now! We'll be back in a minute. Marcel Khalife, Passport. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. Our guest is Noam Chomsky. He was supposed to be today in the West Bank. Instead, he's in Amman. He and his daughter, Aviva Chomsky, were denied entry at the border coming from Jordan into the West Bank. He was going to be delivering 2 lectures. Noam Chomsky, professor at MIT, author of over 100 books, world-renowned linguist and political thinker and activist. Noam, I wanted to ask you about the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, tentatively announcing plans to discuss Israel's nuclear weapons program